coffee mug. All right. We are live.
We're live. Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight for the first meeting. The first meeting will be the community development meeting here on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. I hope everybody is doing well and everybody had a fine Memorial Day weekend. So for the community development portion of the meeting, we have two items. And the first item is the approval of the April 27th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 2 is the matter of amending ordinance 2020-37 to correct the name of the subdivision. This was referred to by Engineer Schneider. I'm not sure if he wants to speak, but we also have a guest here, Mr. Thomas Simon, who would like to speak. So either one of you gentlemen, it's your floor.
I can start first, Mr. Callahan. The developer, which is online right now as well, he submitted the plat for Fieldstone Lake subdivision number 4. It was the village of Fieldstone Lake subdivision number 4, and he would rather have it. Well, he's looking to change the name to the Enclave at Fieldstone Lakes. And I believe the reasoning for this is so that he could have 2 different homeowners associations and basically split those 2 subdivisions, essentially give them a little a separation there. So Tom would like to talk about it, but
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Schneider. We appreciate that. Mr. Simon, you can go right ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much. So
Please, I'm sorry, Mr. Simon, please state your name and address of the company for the record.
Sure. Tom Simon. I'm with Fieldstone Lakes LTD, 2 Berea Commons, Suite 1, and that's in Berea, Ohio, 44017. We're the developers of Fieldstone Lakes subdivision. And if you were in Fieldstone Lakes is a 75-acre planned unit development, and the way it's put together is different areas of the development are kind of separate neighborhoods within the larger community. So if you drove in on Fieldstone Drive, on the left is the Commons of Fieldstone Lakes, and on the right is the Village of Fieldstone Lakes. And as you continue in, the newer section that we paved in the fall, we call the Enclave of Fieldstone Lakes. And in each of those 3 neighborhoods, so far they have their own homeowners association. And of course, there's one master association that covers the entire community. Well, we brought the plat in, and it was approved. The only thing that council was approving was this acceptance of dedication of a section of the public street. And so we brought it in, we took it up to record it, and tax maps reviewed it and needed the name change in order to have the community name. So what it said was, I think originally a Fieldstone Lake subdivision number 4, creating lots 1 through 34 of the Enclave of Fieldstone Lakes. And they said, well, they can't do that. They'd need to pick up the lot numbers and the old name. And so they suggested that we change the title. So we changed the title, and now here we are, just asking that the title be changed.
Okay, well.
And just, we're out of business is the problem. So we're hoping that can be, it's almost like changing, it's almost like correcting a typo. We're just hoping that we can proceed and get this filed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you there, Mr. Simon. So this, just for the official record, please state the actual title clearly.
Yes, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it's went from Fieldstone Lake subdivision number 4 to the Enclave at Fieldstone Lake subdivision number 1.
correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns for any of the members on either committee? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and read the committee report. We have considered the matter of amending ordinance 2020-37. This is an ordinance authorizing amending the said ordinance to reflect the correct name of subdivision. The correct name is the Enclave at Fieldstone, subdivision number 1, Lakes. Could I get, I'm sorry, this is Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's the Enclave at Fieldstone Lakes subdivision number 1.
Okay, I will repeat. The Enclave at Fieldstone Lakes, subdivision number 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Are there, could I get a motion from anyone on community development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr.
Yes.
Jesse and seconded by Mr. Sarah.
Call for the question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried 4-0. Thank you.
Is it possible that that goes through on an emergency basis so that we can file the plat and not be out of business for the next month and a half while the 30-day wait period takes place?
Law Director Deary, would you like to weigh in on that question?
Your Honor, my office has had the opportunity, several of my attorneys, to discuss this with Mr. Schneider and also to review this. Should council wish, we have no issue with council suspending the rules. However, the requirements to pass this under emergency is that it would be an emergency to the city, and therefore we would need specific language to put in the ordinance should council wish to pass this as an emergency. So therefore, I would be looking to this committee to provide our office with such language for an emergency. I unfortunately don't have much in the way of offering to you what that emergency would be, although I certainly do empathize with Mr. Simon and his company's predicament. However, I don't know that I could justify it being an emergency to our residents, which is what the threshold is for making the ordinance an emergency.
Is it a new ordinance or just amending an existing ordinance?
It is amending an existing ordinance, which in turn will be new legislation that we will draft and bring before the council on the next meeting, which would be Monday evening.
And does amending an existing ordinance require the 30-day wait period?
Well, it is in itself, it will have a new ordinance number. This ordinance will amend the prior ordinance. So yes, it will be its own freestanding piece of legislation, if you will. It will be an ordinance to amend a prior ordinance.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Callahan, through you to Law Director Deary. But will it have to wait the 30 days? That's what Mr. Simon's asking.
In short, yes, if there is no emergency clause, yes.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Chairman, this is Mayor Whitfield.
Yes.
So in regards to, I guess the question for Mr. Simon, in this development, do we have residents waiting on this development in order to move and live? Are there folks waiting on this?
Yes. Yes, we have a subdivision that was completed in November, December, and we have no permanent parcel numbers. So we have people that want new homes, and we can't do anything to help them. Some of them may well be Elyria residents, but we have no parcel numbers. We can't put the construction line of credit on the lots because the lots technically are not created yet. So it's quite a predicament.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I guess that was a part of the reason for my question is if you got a group of Elyria folks waiting on their housing, I think that would be something that we could say is an emergency if we got, but that would be my thoughts that I thought I'd share.
Again, I empathize, but this isn't the same as someone who's out of their home due to an act of God or such as a hurricane. That would be a civil contractual issue. It's my understanding that this matter went through Planning Commission under its previous name. There is a performance agreement that was executed under its previous name, and therefore this is actually the quickest option after being in discussion with my fellow attorneys in my office to go about resolving this matter is by amending our prior ordinance. I don't see how that we could in good conscience pass this with an emergency.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Oswald?
Turn your mic on, County.
Turn your mic on.
Ken.
Turn your mic on. There you go. You're on.
Okay.
Can you repeat everything you just said, Mr. Oswald?
All right. I must be muted. I don't know.
You're okay now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
You can.
So what I was just saying is, can you just go ahead with the name the way that it is right now, and then on down the road, just make the change so that he can get going on getting some construction loans and houses built?
Mr. Simon, can you respond to that?
I don't know if we can or not. I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that. Ultimately, we have to file the plat with the county, and it was upon trying to file, it goes through the review up at tax maps, and that's where the tax map review department, that's where the issue came up. I didn't for the life of me expect it to turn into what it's kind of becoming to them, and to me it was essentially a typo, and it sounds like the old ordinance can't just be amended. It's turning into a new ordinance, which I guess I didn't anticipate. But I don't know if this makes a difference, but again, the only thing that the council needed an ordinance for, it had nothing to do with platting the lots. It was only acceptance of dedication of a few hundred feet of Fieldstone Drive. So I don't know if there's a way to separate the two or not.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes, Mr. Platt.
and I know this isn't my committee, but there has to be a way that we can help this gentleman and his company being a good host city, and find a way to get that on as an emergency, because this isn't a plat change. This is a name. We're amending an ordinance through a name change. That's all this is. And they have a lot of money put up in this. Is there something we can do?
Well, I certainly understand.
Ultimately, it's through you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt. Ultimately, it is the committee's call. It's my job to put in my 2 cents. So we will draft the legislation, draft it based upon the direction that the committee gives my department.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes, go right ahead.
I would make a motion that we do put it in as an emergency.
Okay, Mr. Jesse has made a motion that we do put it in as an emergency.
It would have to be under suspension of rules, correct, Amanda?
Oh, yes, it would need to be under suspension of rules. And you would have to designate it tonight so that the committee report issued or as issued states that it would be under an emergency. But it is my responsibility to let you know that I do think that this would be a vulnerable ordinance. I don't necessarily know that it's controversial in any way, but anytime that council exercises the emergency clause, what that means is that it's taking the right away from the public to use the referendum, and that is why we use the emergency clause sparingly. So, but again, it's my job to give advice, and again, we'll draw up the legislation as you direct us.
I don't know if this helps, but there are 130 homeowners in Fieldstone Lakes today that are being harmed because these roads have been paved since November, and people are driving in starting to wonder if there's a problem in the community, and that impacts the value of every one of their homes. What everyone that lives in that community needs is for an orderly progression of the community. And so when people are driving in and why are these roads sitting and why are there no new homes being built, that has potential harm to everybody that lives in that community. So I don't think that helps, but
Mr. Callahan,
Yes, go right ahead.
if I could, if this measure does go pass through the committee tonight into full council, I guess, is everyone going to be here for the vote on suspension? Because if you're not, everyone's not going to be in attendance. So for the full meeting, that's going to be a question that needs to be kind of addressed tonight.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for
Yes.
the vote on the suspension and the vote
Yeah.
on the emergency.
Yep.
Right, 9 votes, I believe. Okay, well, it appears that there's a double-edged sword here. There's arguments made on both sides. I understand what Mr. Simon is saying. However, I also understand Law Director Deary's advice to the committee. This could cause another problem. Obviously, there's a little problem now, but this could cause another problem later. So I guess the committee, we have to make a decision, A or B.
Mr. Callahan, if I could.
Yes.
Yeah, the only time there is a problem is if somebody challenges it. It appears as if from what Mr. Simon has said and also Mr. Snyder, that is unlikely because it already had passed with this other name. And as Mr. Simon says, it's pretty much a typo. I understand what Law Director Deary's saying. She's right. I understand what she's saying. Conversely, also has been talked about, is this an inconvenience or an emergency to Illyrians? And it appears as if it should be. And I would endorse the suspension and emergency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baird. I do appreciate that. That's excellent. Just as the chairman, I just wanted to bring out both points of view for everybody to think it over again before we make this decision. We have 4 people voting on it tonight from the Committee of Community Development. And does anybody else want to chime in? I know there's a motion been made, but it hasn't been seconded yet. Jesse has made the motion.
And I will second.
Okay, it has been seconded by Mrs. Mitchell. Good.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just as a point of clarification, Mr. Jesse's motion includes that this would go forward as an emergency.
I believe that's exactly what he said. Could you please repeat it, Mr. Jesse?
Yes, I'd like this to go through as an emergency under suspension of rules.
That's what,
Second
okay.
concurs.
Yes. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded.
Call for the question.
Calling for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, motion has been carried 4-0.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you as well, and we appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you down the road.
Keep on working.
Yeah, keep
Thank
on
you.
working.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll log off, and thanks again, folks. Have a
Yes,
good
sir.
evening.
You,
Bye-bye.
you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stewart, at this time, I'd like for you to please call finance so we can have a joint meeting with community development.
I'll call finance to order.
Before we start, we do have 3 items on the agenda. Mr. Stewart and myself were both notified that council member Marcus Madison could not make it tonight. So we want to make sure that we got that out there, as he does serve on both committees. Okay. So we do have 3 items. The first item is the approval of the May 11th joint meeting minutes.
Oh, move.
Motion has been made by Sarah.
Second.
I'm sorry, I hear a lot. So who? Give me a name.
Second.
Second by
Second,
Mr.
Mr.
Stira.
Oswald? Mr. Sarah, okay. Motion made by who again?
I made the motion.
Okay, who is the second?
Mark
I
Jesse,
second it.
second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Stewart. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 2 is the matter of an adoption of the CDBG Policy and Procedures Manual and authorizing submission to the HUD agency. Do we have Ashley Scott?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
So what this is a follow-up to the COVID allocation that we had voted on earlier in the month of May. Items number 1 and 2 on the updates are just the standard of participation and access with the reasonable notice and opportunity to comment, as well as the reduction of the 30-day public comment period. That was already voted on, but we included it in this document just to make it more thorough. So what we wanted to discuss tonight was the addition of the public service activity for COVID. So as you know, this is in response to COVID relief. So what we're proposing is to have the Office of Community Development accept applications from qualified nonprofit organizations and city departments interested in providing services that would address COVID relief. The city would notify nonprofits and city departments as needed that we are accepting applications. Funding requests would have a deadline for submission. Our department would then present those requests received to the mayor's office for review and funding approval. And then each subrecipient selected to receive funds would still be required to sign a subrecipient agreement with the city, as they usually do. The eligible activities would stay the same. The use of funds would stay the same, with the exception that they would have to respond to COVID relief. It would still have to meet the LMI benefit, and all subrecipients would still be required to be monitored. Lastly, we're suggesting a change to the method of payment. Subrecipients would continue to receive reimbursement for expenditures like the regular allocation requires. However, if an organization could provide documentation that the funds are needed in advance, the city would have the option to do that on a case-by-case basis. I apologize. Secondly, we're proposing the economic development activity. As you're aware, we did propose to fund $100,000 for this for COVID relief. So the activity is designed to assist micro enterprises and small businesses with financing challenges as a result of COVID. The funds would not be viewed as the primary source of financing for any eligible project if the participants are receiving other funding sources. Under this program, the city would provide emergency microloans to businesses negatively affected by COVID-19. Existing businesses and startups would be eligible. Those businesses would have to have 25 or fewer employees. And they would also have to provide documentation proving that as a result of COVID, their business has suffered a loss. There are some additional program requirements in there. Businesses may apply for up to $5,000 in funds under this program. They would have to physically be located in the city of Elyria. Existing small businesses meeting the program criteria that have experienced 30% or more loss in revenue, and startups demonstrating a business plan that address needs arising as a result of COVID-19 would be eligible to apply. Small businesses would have to have a qualified business plan. To meet the threshold for this loan, there must be sufficient documentation that jobs have been created or retained as a result of receiving these funds. The city would also require that a business owner submitting the application for the loan would be low to moderate, or the business would have to provide evidence that at least one low to moderate income person would be retained. Lastly, the city and businesses would still have to comply with all the requirements set forth by HUD. The restrictions are the same as in our prior revolving loan fund. And then the process would be a little different. So what we're proposing is that the Elyria Economic Development Committee would review the applications that come in, and they would have they would be able to go ahead and make the approvals from there to get the money out into the community a little bit quicker. Any
Okay, well,
questions?
yeah, thank you very much. Are there any questions from anyone on either committee?
Just to confirm, Mr. Chair, the amount of that we're allocating is $100,000.
Through you,
Right.
You're asking for the economic development?
Right.
activity?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, that was $100,000.
Okay. And was there? What is the filing deadline for all these opportunities? Has that been determined yet? When it's going to happen, and determining the deadlines yet?
For the individual activities?
Right.
We have not set a deadline for that yet. This was the first step in the process to, before we put it out there, to make sure that council was on board with the proposed changes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments or concerns?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Davis.
Yes, is there a certain amount that these business will be able to obtain from this loan, or from this money, from the 100,000? Is one business, how much are each one going to be allotted? Are you trying to give it all to just 2 or 3, or how's it going to be allotted?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're proposing a maximum of $5,000 for each business.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. All right, any other questions? I'm seeing none on my screen, so I'm going to read the committee report and then ask for a motion from the community development side of this. We have considered the matter of adopting the CDBG policy and procedures manual. This is an ordinance authorized proposed updates to the CDBG policy and procedure manual, and to authorize submission to the Housing and Urban Development Agency. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah,
Second.
second by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried 4-0.
Can I get a motion from finance?
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question.
Question been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you, everybody. One more item for the joint meeting here. Item 3 is the matter of the purchase of real estate for the benefit of the water department. This was referred to by Administrative Legal Counsel, Mr. Jim Taylor. Mr. Taylor?
I'll speak shortly. Sam, Mr. Jacobs on the call. He can probably give you more detail.
Okay.
Water department, obviously, as you all aware, works out of Lorraine. Across the street are these 2 lots. I don't know if you received the map or not from You have the
Yes.
map?
last time.
We were looking at trying to acquire some additional parcels for development. We looked at the nursing home property to the west. They are not interested, but the piece across the street became available. The value is about 100,000, but the house is deteriorated. We started out at 42,000. We came to 50. We've signed a purchase agreement that is subject to council authorizing. So if council doesn't so approve, the purchase agreement doesn't go through. But the purpose was to give Sam additional land for development and use. Sam, I think I'll let you speak. You can give more of an explanation of why this land is valuable to your department.
Okay, the two parcels total about 3.9 acres. Our main easement leaving the plant goes behind that one parcel with the house on. And we're constantly going on there with trucks to fix valves, work valves. Just a headache to do that. Plus, if we need to expand the plant in the future, not next year, not in 5 years, maybe in 10 and 20 years, there's almost 4 acres there to do something. Avon Lake did this a few years ago. They bought property across the street and they expanded their pump station and a tank, underground tank across the street. But this would benefit immediately our easement for our mains leaving the plant going to Elyria. It would help Dave Rothgary maintain them. I think it's a good deal for 50,000.
And this only comes up every so often. If we don't take advantage of it, we may never have that opportunity.
Right, we'll never have that opportunity to get property around the plant.
There will be some demolition costs, so everybody's aware of, about $15,000 we're estimating. Mr. Brubaker might be able to give more explanation on that, but we can't take it down ourselves because it's in Lorraine and Elyria. Because it's in Lorraine, we have to follow their ordinances and building
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right
then where would this be paid for if we move forward, where would we be paying this from?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be through the water fund.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think this is just a great opportunity for us to kind of capitalize on a parcel of real estate and to expand, like Mr. Jacob said, down the road. So.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We've all been out to that plant. We've seen the setup there, possible growth in the future. And when the opportunity is there now, we have to think ahead. You know, we have to be forward thinking, and I personally support it. So if there's any other questions or comments, feel free.
Through you,
Mr.
Chair.
Oswald. Mr. Oswald.
A couple of things. I was looking through the purchase agreement and I didn't see no price on that. So I don't know when that was going to be stuck in there before somebody signed it. And then on the purchase agreement, pending a land study.
I apologize, Kenny. You only saw the clerk's office, they had asked me for the parcel numbers. That's all I had given her that sheet for. The actual purchase agreement itself that we're signed is for 50,000. And it does also contain the ability for us to do an inspection should we so desire.
And what do they think they may find, you know, with this land study? They're going to do a bore, or they're going to do a soil test, or I don't know exactly what that test is.
Talk to Sam. This is residential property across the street. There's nothing near it that would be contaminated, like a gas station or like that. Sam, you would have a better understanding, but I believe this is just like buying a house. Rarely is there any type of environmental study done. We put that in there in case we decided to do one. If Sam had any concerns or anybody else did, we can waive that. But that is in there as a condition of the purchase.
We don't have any concerns right now. Like I said, it's vacant property. The majority behind that house is all vacant and woods. We've cleaned our easement in the past couple of years, but part of our valves, and actually we do have an easement to go on their property behind that house. And sometimes people are out there, but I don't think there's anything on the property. There's no businesses with tanks or anything close.
Is there a septic system of some type, or is that city sewers?
City sewers.
Okay. Okay, so we're not going to add any extra costs that we know of, other than
We
the
could do-
demolition and the purchase?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we could do a phase one if you wanted. Again, I'm not a guarantor, but usually in residential, as Kenny, you're aware, rarely is that done, but it can be authorized and requested. A phase one, for those that don't know, is just an investigation. There's no digging or anything. And they look for what's been in that area over the past. If it would indicate a former gas station site or whatever, then you'd go to a phase two for digging and sampling. I don't expect that to happen here, but again, I was going to rely more on Sam, who has a history out there.
Yeah, I would assume there's nothing there because we have water lines right there.
Right.
Our big two main water lines leaving the plant, plus Amherst has one leaving.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Going by what Mr. Jacobs said, to do a phase one, it kind of doesn't make sense. There's a house there, it's residential. We don't need to incur any extra costs. If Mr. Jacobs says there's nothing there, he's been out there for years, I say we move forward with it. I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments or concerns?
Mr. Brubaker.
Mr. Brubaker?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Oswald's point, the only other aspect is you have to remember, and this will be a part of the demolition cost, and it would have been regardless, is we'll have to do an asbestos abatement. And asbestos that's on the property, we will be required to abate that prior to demolition. But that's typical in any house that we bring down.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, by the way, Mr. Brubaker. Are there any other questions? If I hear none, I will go ahead and read the committee report and ask for a motion from community development. Okay. We have considered the matter of the purchase of real estate. This would be an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 2 parcels of land in the city of Lorraine to benefit the Elyria water pumping plant. Can I get a motion from community development?
So moved.
Motion made by Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from finance?
So move, Mr. Chair.
By Ms. Davis, second by Mr. Tolet. Any further discussion?
Call for the question.
Question by call. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you to both committees. There is nothing further on the joint meeting portion of it. I know Mr. Stewart will carry on with finance. So at this time, I would like to get a motion for the community development portion of the meeting to be adjourned.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, second by Mr. Sarah. Question on the question. Thank you. Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Carry on, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I'll let everybody kind of get a little bit situated and we'll carry on here in a minute. Okay. We'll continue on with finance. Can I get approval of the May 11th, 2020 finance meeting minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Baird,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 2. Bear with me, I'm kind of doing this from my phone. We compare the matter of the VOCA and the SVAA grants, an ordinance authorizing the law director to submit applications to the Ohio Attorney General's office and to accept grants if offered. The said grants are to be used for victims advocate salary and training equipment. Grants are be for the 2020-2021 years. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird,
Second.
second by Ms. Davis. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, President Stewart. These 2 grants operate on the same grant cycle. My advocates are in the process of putting together the grant applications. which will be due shortly. Notably, combined, the grants typically account for the vast majority of salary for the two advocates who work at Elyria Municipal Court. And they're quite simply pretty crucial when it comes to the law director's office budget. These two ladies work very, very hard, and they provide a really great service to our residents, and also on contract to the residents of North Ridgeville.
And this is something standard that we apply for on a yearly basis. So it's, you know,
yeah, for years now. Yeah.
Yeah, for common practice for us. So then a discussion more on that. I call for the question.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 3. We consider the matter of the delinquent public utility charges that have been approved by the Utilities Resolution Board. A resolution approving the attached list of delinquent inactivity utility accounts to be submitted for collection by placing the set liens on the properties and directing them to Lorraine County Auditor's Office. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Discussion. Mayor Whitfield.
Hey, thank you. Through you, Chair. I just wanted to make note that a part of, we've continued to suspend the disconnection of people's water in the city during the pandemic. And through this COVID CDBG, we will also have resources to help people who can't afford their bills. So I guess, I just wanted to let council know as residents call you and saying, hey, I can't pay my bill. What do I do? It's starting to add up and stack up on me, that we're hoping to be working through the Salvation Army, and there'll be some relief for them.
Very good, thank you. I see there's another number down below. I don't know if that's Mrs. Connor trying to weigh in, or if the mayor is just going to be speaking to that, or Mr. Firestein.
I am here if there are any questions. This is Debbie Connor. Through you,
Hi,
Chair.
Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Hello.
Any questions for Debbie in regards to this? No? All right. I call for the question
Thank
then.
you.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item number 4. We've considered the matter of the changes to the 2020 permanent appropriations, or authorizing the amending of the 2020 permanent appropriations number 2020-30 as per the attached. Mr. Finance Director Pulaski, or Mr.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe we have any changes tonight.
Oh, okay. So we only have the 3 items on the agenda then, I'm guessing?
Pardon me?
We only have the 3 items, so there's no changes submitted.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So we'll remove that from over and through there.
That's always a standing referral, so it always appears on the agenda, so.
Okay, I just had it on, the committee report here, so, all right, we'll have to tighten that up a little bit. All right, well, I guess with that being said, there's no further business. Entertain a motion for adjournment for finance
So move, Mr. Chair.
by Ms. Davis,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Any further discussion?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carried. Good job, everybody. Good night. Good to see everybody. Hope everyone's healthy.
Good night.
Thank
All right.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Jim, see you in the morning.
See you in the morning.
Okay.